Hi, how are you? How's everybody? Welcome to Frankenstein Tea as I get settled in here in my little office of the moment. This is my office of the moment. I can take my mask down and maybe pull my scarves up. So my office for the moment is the side entranceway. And I just did a workshop in here. And so I've been in here for a couple of hours and I'm chilly in here. So I have like a blanket on my lap. I have two scarves on and I went and made myself some tea. Ooh, just to get warm. So welcome. I'm Kristen. I'm the library director for the Island Free Library on Block Island. And this is a short story program for adult listeners. And this short story program is called Frankenstein Tea. And let's see, I haven't talked about that for a little bit. So let me do a quick minute on Frankenstein Tea. Frankenstein is a permissible read as far as copyright laws and making a recording of that story. It's over 100 years old, which puts it in public domain. And so when I started to think about some virtual programming for adults during the pandemic, I, came across Frankenstein as this permissible read. It's, such a famous book and it's always boasted as permissible with copyright laws. And I started thinking about, and I thought, well, maybe I'll read Frankenstein for the next few months. And that was almost a year ago, last March there. And then I started, so Frankenstein was resonating with me. And I started to realize, well, it has a couple of meanings, right? It's a permissible read, but we're also in a monster of a time. Hi to my dad, just signed on. We're in this monster of a time with this monster of a pandemic, right? And we're still in this monster of a time with this monster virus during this monster of a pandemic. So that was a little bit about where Frankenstein was coming from. And what I hoped was that we could sit down together at 3:00 in the afternoon. It's a little early for tea time. High tea is usually about 4, I think. But certainly 3:00 is an okay American time to have tea. It's really the slump of American workday, right? That's like a well-known slump right there, that 3:00 slump. You need like a break to listen to me read. You need a break, maybe a power bar or a protein snack or a cup of tea or some coffee, maybe just water, maybe just stretch your legs. But that's a little bit of the history of Frankenstein Tea, why it's named such, why it happens at 3, and what we're doing here. A little bit more about what we're doing here is we're trying to come together through literature and keep moving through the tunnel. I was talking with a coworker this morning and with a woman who I do a podcast with yesterday. We did some planning for our next our second season of our podcast. And, thinking of those things and then talking to my coworker this morning, I realized we're still in the tunnel here. We're still in this COVID tunnel. And I think there's more light in the tunnel. I think I always knew there was light at the end. And I think there's some light in the tunnel right now, maybe more light with the vaccine getting closer, with us being more comfortable with mask wearing, with us sort of coming to this understanding of look, this is what we have to do. So let's just do it. So maybe people feel that there's more light. I feel like there's more light in the tunnel, but it's still definitely a tunnel. We are still in it. And, we need to come through it, and we're going to come through it together. And I hope that this short story program facilitates that for you and makes it somewhat easier. I know it doesn't facilitate the whole thing, but what I'm saying is that it brings maybe some comfort and some community and a time out from it so that we can continue to move through the tunnel all the way to the end. So let's see this all the way to the end. All right. So my tea is going to be hot, but I'm going to try a sip here. It's good. Oh, it's cold in this room, but it's good tea. And where am I going to put it? I think I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to read today. I'm going to read an O. Henry story today. I'm not sure. I've read an O. Henry story here. Maybe I might have. I used to know all the stories and knew exactly what I was doing each day. And, and that ebbs and flows, right? Like, there's waning moments where I'm like, what am I going to read today? And I find something quick. And other weeks where I'm like, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like this is what I'm going to read today. So, I used to remember all of them, what I had read, when I had read it, what book it was out of. I probably still remember most of them, but I'm not sure if I read an O. Henry story. I can't quite do it. So today I'm going to read one, and it was a last minute pick, and I have therefore not pre-read it. I don't know this story. I don't know where it's going. We're going to be on this adventure together. I don't want to stop drinking this. It'll be on my screen. It's from an internet site. So I leave this screen and go to another, but you all have done that with me before. So just remember, I can't see your comments or your questions. But that's okay. There's usually not many, and usually we don't lose connection, and you don't need to flag me down about anything. So I think we'll move over to that site as I take one more sip of tea here. Okay, let's read this story. Let's see what O. Henry has to say to us today. I just moved my computer. Oh, yeah, no, I'm still good. Okay. This is The Cactus by O. Henry. The most notable thing about time is that it is so purely relative. A large amount of reminiscence is, by common consent, conceded to the drowning man. And it is not past belief that one may review an entire courtship while removing one's gloves. This is what Trysdale was doing, standing by a table in his bachelor apartments. On the table stood a singular-looking green plant in a red earthen jar. The plant was one of the species of cacti and was provided with long, tentacular leaves that perpetually swayed with the slightest breeze with a peculiar beckoning motion. Trysdale's friend, the brother of the bride, stood at a sideboard complaining at being allowed to drink alone. Both men were in evening dress, while white favors like stars upon their coats shone through the gloom of the apartment. As he slowly unbuttoned his gloves, there passed through Trysdale's mind a swift, scarifying retrospect of the last few hours. It seemed that in his nostrils was still the scent of the flowers that had been banked in odorous masses about the church, and in his ears the low-pitched hum of 1,000 well-bred voices, the rustle of crisp garments, and, most insistently recurring, the drawling words of the minister, irrevocably binding her to another. From this last hopeless point of view, he still strove, as if it had become a habit of his mind, to reach some conjecture as to why and how he had lost her. Shaken rudely by the uncompromising fact, he had suddenly found himself confronted by a thing he had never before faced, his own innermost, unmitigated, arid, unbedecked self. He saw all the garbs of pretense and egoism that he had worn now to rags of folly. He shuddered at the thought that to others, before now, the garments of his soul must have appeared sorry and threadbare. Vanity and conceit? These were the joints in his armor, and how free from either she had always been. But why? As she had slowly moved up the aisle toward the altar, he had felt an unworthy, sullen exultation that had served to support him. He had told himself that her paleness was from thoughts of another than the man to whom she was about to give herself. But even that poor consolation had been wrenched from him. For when he saw that swift, limpid, upward look that she gave the man when he took her hand, he knew himself to be forgotten. Once that same look had been raised to him, and he had gauged its meaning. Indeed, his conceit had crumbled. Its last prop was gone. Why had it ended thus? There had been no quarrel between them. Nothing. For the 1000th time, he remarshaled in his mind the events of those last few days before the tide had so suddenly turned. She had always insisted upon placing him upon a pedestal, and he had accepted her homage with royal grandeur. It had been a very sweet incense that she had burned before him, so modest, he told himself, so childlike and worshipful, and he would once have sworn, so sincere. She had invested in him with an almost supernatural number of high attributes and excellencies and talents, and he had absorbed the oblation as a desert drinks the rain that can coax from it no promise of blossom or fruit. As Trisdale grimly wrenched apart the seam of his last glove, the crowning instance of his fatuous and tardily mourned egoism came vividly back to him. The scene was the night when he had asked her to come up on his pedestal with him and share his greatness. He could not, now, for the pain of it, allow his mind to dwell upon the memory of her convincing beauty that night, the careless wave of her hair, the tenderness and virginal charm of her looks and words. But they had been enough, and they had brought him to speak. During their conversation, she had said, "And Captain Carruthers tells me that you speak the Spanish language like a native. Why have you hidden this accomplishment from me? Is there anything you do not know?" Now, Carruthers was an idiot. No doubt he, Trisdale, had been guilty, he sometimes did such things, of airing at the club some old canting Castilian proverb dug from the hotchpotch at the back of dictionaries. Carruthers, who was one of his incontinent admirers, was the very man to have magnified this exhibition of doubtful erudition. But alas, the incense of her admiration had been so sweet and flattering. He had allowed the imputation to pass without denial, without protest. He allowed her to twine about his brow this spurious day of Spanish scholarship. He let it grace his conquering head, and, among its soft convolutions, he did not feel the prick of the thorn that was to pierce him later. How glad, how shy, how tremulous she was, how she fluttered like a snared bird when he laid his mightiness at her feet. He could have sworn, and he could swear now, that unmistakable consent was in her eyes, but, coyly, she would give him no direct answer. "I will send you my answer tomorrow," she said, and he, the indulgent, confident victor, smilingly granted the delay. The next day he waited, impatient, in his rooms for the word. At noon, her groom came to the door and left the strange cactus in the red earthen jar. There was no note, no message, merely a tag upon the plant bearing a barbarous foreign or botanical name. He waited until night, but her answer did not come. His large pride and hurt vanity kept him from seeking her. 2 evenings later, they met at a dinner. Their greetings were conventional, but she looked at him, breathless, wondering, eager. He was courteous, adamant, waiting for explanation. With womanly swiftness, she took her cue from his manner and turned to snow and ice. Thus, and wider from this on, they had drifted apart. Where was his fault? Who had been to blame? Humbled now, he sought the answer amid the ruins of his self-conceit. If the voice of the other man in the room, querulously intruding upon his thoughts, aroused him. I say, Trisdale, what the deuce is the matter with you? You look unhappy, as if you yourself had been married instead of having acted merely as an accomplice. Look at me, another accessory, come 2,000 miles on a garlicky, cockroachy banana steamer all the way from South America to connive at the sacrifice. Please to observe how lightly my guilt rests upon my shoulders. Only little sister I had, too, and now she's gone. Come now, take something to ease your conscience. I don't drink just now, thanks, said Trisdale. Your brandy, resumed the other, coming over and joining him, is abominable. Run down to see me sometime at Punta Redonda and try some of our stuff that old Garcia smuggles in. It's worth the trip. Hello, here's an old acquaintance. Wherever did you rake up this cactus, Trisdale? A present, said Trisdale, from a friend. Know the species? Very well. It's a tropical concern. See hundreds of them around Punta every day. Here's the name on his tag tied to it. Know any Spanish, Trisdale? No, said Trisdale with the bitter wraith of a smile. Is it Spanish? Yes. The natives imagine the leaves are reaching out and beckoning to you. They call it by this name, ventramarm. Name means in English, come and take me. Well, that was great. I wasn't sure. I that was, like I said, I did not pre-read that, but boy, that was fun. I liked that. His conceit there, right? Stood in his way. Wow, that was great. So I'm back on that page. I want to read you the top because it's how it starts. The garments of his soul must have appeared sorry and threadbare. Vanity and conceit, these were the joints in his armor, and how free from either she had always been. Good one. Maybe I'm going to go full down the line here, and from not reading O. Henry to maybe we should only read O. Henry. Have to find some more O. Henry. That was great. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. Thanks for coming. Be well. Mask up. Here's my mask underneath these layers. Mask up. Keep making your way through the tunnel. We're going to get to the other end. No doubts. Wash your hands. Keep your distance. Eat your vegetables. Sleep tight. It's getting gray on Block Island, so maybe cozy up and go back and listen to another story. Enjoy them. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.